You're watching a movie called It's a Bikini World from 1967. It's about a chauvinistic, shallow surfer who pretends to be his own nerdy twin brother in an attempt to win over a woman who had already rejected his advances. The movie arrived near the end of the 1960s beach film craze, with Trans-America Films doing their best to mimic the earlier style popularized by American International Pictures. The film star was Tommy Kirk, who had been one of Disney's brightest stars from 1957 to 1964. Kirk was an extremely likable performer with sharp comic timing, who often embodied the cheerful boy-next-door persona in Disney's family-friendly comedies. But the real Tommy Kirk was far more complicated. His private life, he knew, was something that the extremely image-conscious Walt Disney would never accept and could jeopardize his career, and it ultimately did just that. He was born Thomas Lee Kirk on December 10, 1941, in Louisville, Kentucky. His parents were Louis and Lucy Kirk, his father being a mechanic who worked for the highway department, his mom a legal secretary. He was the second of 4 sons. He didn't talk much about his early life, but when he was 15 months old, the Kirk family moved to Downey, California. My father heard of work in the aircraft industries out here. They were booming during wartime, and he ended up at Balti and Downey. Then we moved to Fresno for a while, and then to Bakersfield, and then back to Downey. His 16-year-old brother Joe, who had his mind set on being an actor, decided to try out at the Pasadena Playhouse for a role in Eugene O'Neill's Wilderness. Joe dared his 12-year-old brother Tommy to come along and audition as well. Joe didn't get the part. That went to Bobby Driscoll, but Tommy received a small role. Dan Ross does a nice job of the older son Arthur, and Yvonne Lime is a cute young sister, while Tommy Kirk makes out very well as the small fry brother. I thought it was sort of fun. For some reason I had no stage fright. Maybe that's the thing. It was just something to do and it was fun. I liked being around all the show people. Bobby Driscoll was very nice to me. It's funny, he had just been fired from Disney. Well, it had 5 lines. It didn't pay anything and no one else showed up, so I got the part. A Hollywood agent saw me in the play, called my parents, and asked to represent me. With his parents' consent, he signed with a Beverly Hills agency and almost immediately began getting work in television. His mother drove him to the jobs. In 1956, he was soon appearing in television shows like Lux Video Theater, The Loretta Young Show, and Gunsmoke.
Oh, are you sick?
Oh, no, goodness, no. No, I'm just having dinner up in my room, and, well, this is more comfortable.
Well, if you were sick, a dress like that would make you feel better, I bet.
I imagine it would, yes.
Boy actor signs with studio. Tommy Kirk, 13, who had made his stage debut at the Pasadena Playhouse last fall in Wilderness with Will Rogers Jr. and Bobby Driscoll, became a motion picture star yesterday at American National Studios. Tommy, son of Mr. and Mrs. Louis A. Kirk of Downey, has an important role in the Western film The Last of the Old-Time Shooting Sheriffs, one of the Reader's Digest on TV series. In late 1956, Tommy auditioned for and received a part for the Mickey Mouse Club. Tommy Kirk of Walt Disney has been picked by Walt Disney to appear with Tim Considine and Carol Ann Campbell in a leading role of the Hardy Boys series being filmed for use next season on the Mickey Mouse Club.
Joe, hurry! Joe, what's the matter with you?
Look, Iowa, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, but I'm all through with pretend games now, so don't go inventing those wild stories anymore.
What?
From now on, I'm gonna grow up.
The money was good. To me, it was a fortune. It was the longest job I've ever had. I think it took 16 weeks. They spent a lot of money and a lot of time on that series. Along with doing voiceover work and introducing segments on the Mickey Mouse Club with Annette Funicello, they also sent him on the road to cover both the Democratic and Republican conventions of 1956. Teenage on-the-spot coverage. Walt Disney, in a unique move to provide American youth with on-the-spot video coverage of the presidential conventions, is dispatching teenaged correspondents Tommy Kirk and Judy Harriet to Chicago and San Francisco. They will supply first-hand reportage for Mickey Mouse specials to be televised on the Mickey Mouse Club. Disney's principle in creating this unprecedented assignment is to attract and inform the nationwide audience of future voters, who comprise a majority of the Mickey Mouse Club viewers. Serving as reporters, interviewers, and commentators, the teenage team will seek material of particular interest to juniors. Tommy, 14, and Judy, 13, are the youngest accredited correspondents attending both conventions. Walt Disney assigned a 14-year-old Kentuckian, Tommy Kirk, to play the title role in the forthcoming Young Davy Crockett serial scheduled for ABC's Mickey Mouse Club next season. He soon signed a 7-year contract with Disney. His first film for Disney was one of the roles he is best remembered for today. Walt Disney tells me that his Old Yeller feature-length film starts this month with Tommy Kirk, graduate of the Mickey Mouse Club TV show, playing the older brother. Kevin Corcoran plays the baby brother. Jeff York's cast as the grandpa. They still haven't found the right character for Yeller and are testing dogs like crazy. Well, I feel pretty proud of that movie because the fans seem to remember that. It was very rare to see a Disney film with the killing of an animal. It's rather shocking. That was the twist in the thing. Normally in a Disney film, it's sort of sweetness and light. I really cried. You can't fake it. You've got to cry. You just can't make that face. Youngsters, great! The remarkable child actors, 15-year-old Tommy Kirk and 7-year-old Kevin Corcoran, supply high points of fun and heart tugs. Both boys have been thoughtfully directed and the result is delightful and uninhibited. Beverly Washburn as Lisbeth is a self-effacing and charming little miss. Soon he was back on TV in a second Hardy Boys mystery with a female actor he had worked with back when he was on stage in Ah Wilderness. Louisvillian Tommy Kirk joins Yvette Lime in ghost hunting on the Mystery of Ghost Farm, a serial now running on the Mickey Mouse Club weekdays on Channel 3.
What was going to happen next?
Hi there.
Where'd you come from?
Professional secret.
Well, crawl back in the woodwork while I finish, will you?
This is supposed to be a mystery, isn't it? Well, give him some clues.
About the ghost farm, you mean?
Sure. Let him figure it out like we did. Let him guess what the real mystery was.
Old Yeller was a great dramatic role for the young man, but after, Disney only used him in their huge money-making comedies. It all began with a comedy that was made for television in 2 one-hour episodes, but the studio eventually decided to edit the 2 shows together and put them into theaters. Along with Tommy, it starred Fred MacMurray, Gene Hagen, Annette Funicello, and Tim Considine. It was called The Shaggy Dog, one of the most successful films Disney ever had. With the film's success, Tommy would only be offered more Disney lighthearted comedies. Tommy Kirk, ideal in part. The officials are hard to convince even with the father's help. Eventually the message gets through. The whole fabulous idea winds up in a typical Keystone Cop chase with the Shaggy Dog at the wheel of a police car. Tommy Kirk, who plays the teenager, is ideal in the part. His voice contributes the most beguiling part of the performance, especially when it seems to come from the mouth of Chiffon. 3 young actors' contracts okayed. Superior Judge John Clark yesterday approved contracts for 3 actors who performed in the Walt Disney picture The Shaggy Dog. Annette Funicello, 16, received a contract approval for $325 a week. Tommy Kirk, 17, received approval for a motion picture and television contract starting at $850 a week and increasing to $2,000 a week if all options are picked up. Tommy Kirk gets new Disney role. A 17-year-old actor who had just become one of the most popular teenagers in movies has just signed to play the lead in Walt Disney's newest movie, The Swiss Family Robinson. He's the lad who turned into a canine at the oddest times in The Shaggy Dog, a comedy which proved to be one of the best box office draws the Disney studio ever released. Tommy Kirk, who drew the funniest movie role of the year as a teenager turned Shaggy Dog in Walt Disney's current comedy record breaker, The Shaggy Dog, has been assigned a top role in Disney's $5 million The Swiss Family Robinson to roll this summer in the tropics. 17-year-old Tommy can make you cry as readily as he can make you laugh, as he did in Walt Disney's previous box office smash Old Yeller, will now play a studious, inventive son of a shipwrecked family for whom invention is the chief staff of life. He will be Ernst, the boy who comes between the elder Fritz, played by James MacArthur, and little Kevin Mucci-Kikorin as Francis. The Swiss Family Robinson was filmed on location in Tobago, which was a grueling experience. We were in the tropics on an island with hurricanes and bugs. No poisonous snakes, but mosquitoes and everything. It was 7 months of filming, and we did a lot of climbing, and then through swamps and being up to our necks in swamp water. I got a fever and was delirious, out of my head for about 5 days ranting. I was bug bit, and you know they fester and get infected. I carried scars from that thing for years. It was an ordeal. Actor dogged by his past. Young Tommy Kirk, a teenage member of the Walt Disney stable of actors, just isn't going to be allowed to forget his role as the boy who kept turning into a Bratislavian sheepdog in Disney's The Shaggy Dog. After a particularly tough scene during the filming of The Swiss Family Robinson recently, Tommy sat down on a rock and complained that his feet hurt. Front or hind feet? Asked fellow actor James MacArthur. In the 17th annual Film Daily poll in 1959, Tommy was voted Best Juvenile Actor. New film for Kirk. Tommy Kirk of Shaggy Dog fame is to continue his comedy career starring opposite Fred MacMurray, Nancy Olson, and Keenan Wynn in Walt Disney's The Absent-Minded Professor. He continued to appear in Disney films, including Babes in Toyland in 1961, Moon Pilot and Bon Voyage in 1962, Son of Flubber and the sequel to Old Yeller, Savage Sam in 1963, and The Misadventures of Merlin Jones in 1954. And he also provided one of the English voices for the Russian animated film The Snow Queen. By the end of 1961, both Annette and Kirk were rewarded new contracts with Disney. Tommy, now 20 years old, was getting $1,000 a week with options that could bring up to $3,000 a week. And with all the success, Tommy thought it was time for a more grown-up name. I've outgrown Tommy and I hate it, reasons the 20-year-old. I hate Tom too. It sounds as if it should go with Tom Swift and his electric vibrator. Besides, Tom Curt is too curt. Tom H. Kirk might be better. No, I think it should be Thomas Kirk. All the money Tommy Kirk received from his Mouseketeer days was turned over to him when he became 21 years old recently, and he turned it over to pay off the mortgage on his parents' ranch. Tommy Kirk, Walt Disney's youngest contractee, turned 22 and changed his name to Tom Kirk as being less Disney-fied and more dignified. Disney star Annette Funicello tells friends she's fed up with the romance rumors linking her with another Disney contract player, Tommy Kirk. She isn't fond of him at all, chiefly because on a recent tour, he practically measured her hotel suite with a yardstick to make sure the studio hadn't favored her with more luxurious accommodations than his. If by any chance she did wind up with a bigger room, he'd kick up a fuss. Believe it or not, that's how you get to be a star. Under the careful tutelage of Walt Disney, talented actor Tommy Kirk is emerging as one of Hollywood's finest comedians, a point of fact that can be judged from his hilarious portrayal of a mental whiz in Disney's newest feature film, The Misadventures of Merlin Jones, which he stars with lovely Annette. His innate sense of timing, fluidity of movement, self-assurance, physical vitality, and genuine likableness all contributes to a deft handling of any comic assignment. He is also a young man with one of the most mobile faces in and out of grease paint. As an actor, I'm not even out of the woods yet, Tommy commented during a brief visit this week. I have a lot to learn, and in Hollywood, the competition is fierce. I have no illusions about getting ahead unless I work very hard at it. But things started to turn sour for Tommy at Disney. The big studio expected all their actors to represent themselves with a family-friendly image. But Tommy Kirk was his own man who had no choice but to keep his private life a secret. When I look at newspapers at the time, I'm still not sure if Tommy was still trying to figure things out himself, coming to terms with his own sexuality, or if he was just trying to say the right things in front of the press. A kind of date Tommy doesn't want to hear from a girl is the loud kind. The girl I most want to date is soft-spoken, Tommy explains. In talk as well as in clothing and manners, she is intensely feminine. She leaves it to the boys to be masculine, and her talk is flashy with humor, but not the kind that chops you up. She's with you. Emerson had a phrase that fits her, somebody with whom you can think out loud. Disney star Tommy Kirk and Jenny Maxwell are dating. Just listen to Tommy try to prove that some young bachelors could care less whether a girl can darn socks, wash clothes, or even cook. I don't want somebody running around with her feet all bound up, bowing and scraping, he explains. I want my wife to be so intelligent that there's nothing I can do or say that she hasn't foreseen. But who will do those little chores like feeding a big bruiser like Tommy? Who cares, he says. You can always get somebody to do those things. As one of the young, healthy crowd here, he is consistently linked to starlets in the gossip column. It's all made up, he says. I'm not interested in getting married, yet. It would interfere with my career. Every man needs to have a time when he's alone. Too many fellows go right from the protective security of their families to the protective security of a wife. I've been on my own for 2 years now, and I like it. So there you are, girls. A gauntlet if I've ever seen one. Tommy was hiding his lifestyle from the family studio, but they were starting to figure things out. They were growing aware. They weren't stupid. They could add 2 and 2, and I think they were beginning to suspect. I noticed people in certain quarters were getting less and less friendly. You know, you can tell. To complicate things, I was messing around with drugs and drinking. I wasn't disciplined. I was kind of a wild Irish person, and nobody could tell me what to do. I lived my life exactly as I pleased. I tried to keep my private life private, but I was messing around, and I was drinking a lot and going around to wild parties and carrying on, you know. And this is all contrary to the Disney image. His drinking had started when he was around 14, and sometime around 1962, when he was tired, someone gave him some amphetamines, which made him feel good and eventually turned into an addiction. He was also trying to figure things out. Later, he said his teenage years were desperately unhappy as he came to terms with his sexuality. I knew I was gay, but I had no outlet for my feelings. It's very hard to meet people, and at that time, there was no place to socialize. It wasn't until the early 60s that I began to hear of places where gays congregated. When I was around 17 or 18 years old, I finally admitted to myself that I wasn't going to change. I didn't know what the consequences would be, but I had the definite feeling that I was going to wreck my Disney career and maybe my whole career. It was all going to come to an end. Eventually, I became involved with somebody, and I was fired. There was no announcement from Disney about his termination, and it wasn't until years later that he explained the incident that caused his departure. But he did have one more film to make with the studio called The Monkey's Uncle, which he described as a very uncomfortable shoot. During the production, his drug use got the better of him, and during one scene he passed out and fell to the floor. The 1960s were a tough time for the young man as drugs and alcohol took their toll. He said he almost died of an overdose a couple of times. And there was a time when he fell asleep at the wheel in his convertible driving 60 miles an hour and was nearly hit by a truck, but somehow he survived without hurting anybody. I never messed with heroin. It was mostly pills, speed, uppers, diet pills, and I got thin as a rake. And I was high all the time. It was a terrible period in my life. After that, work became difficult to find, and he called it pretty much of a nightmare. He was still drinking heavy and didn't get off drugs till the end of the 1960s. I was basically unemployable and very thin. I don't know, just nothing worked. People tried to help me, but I lost everything I had. I lost money, my property, I partied it all away. Once done with Disney, Tommy found work, some say with Annette Funicello's help, in B Films. Kirk Funicello signed Film Pact. Tommy Kirk joins another Disney alumni, Annette Funicello, under the banner of American International with a 2-year, 4-picture contract. In his first AIP production, Tommy will team up with Annette in a science fiction musical comedy titled The Maid and the Martian, set for late summer shooting. Annette is currently starring with Frankie Avalon in another musical comedy, Bikini Beach. The Maid and the Martian would be released as Pajama Party. And at the same time he started with AIP, he was cast in a prestigious role. Tommy Kirk, star of Walt Disney comedies, moves to Paramount for a co-starring role in The Sons of Katie Elder. The film might have sent Tommy's career into a whole new direction, but unfortunately there was a police raid at a Hollywood party that Tommy was attending. And although he was later cleared of all charges, it was too late and his part on the John Wayne film was recast with Michael Anderson Jr. Tommy continued his film career with AIP and other independent low-budget films.
I'm not being friendly, I'm being scared.
There's nothing to be scared of. Not with me here.
Oh!
Nice try!
He even landed a role in the Burt I. Gordon film, Village of the Giants.
Can you imagine the problems we're going to solve? Unlimited food supply at practically no extra cost. Oh, and we got to keep this secret. Absolutely secret.
Tommy has been set to star in Paramount's The Girl in Daddy's Bikini by producer Charles Schwartz. Stephanie Rothman directs. The film would be released as It's a Bikini World. Television and radio commentator Joe Pine joins Tommy Kirk, Anne Helm, Jacques Bergerac, Danica DeHaan, and Robert Ball in the cast of Jack A. Harris's production of Mother Goose A Go-Go. The film's title would later be changed to The Unkissed Bride.
I've never seen the ocean before.
Well, then you've missed much.
Yeah. Yes, I have.
There's a whole world beneath that.
Someone forgot to tell the producers of Catalina Caper starring Tommy Kirk that the beach party cycle expired long ago. There was also It's Alive from 1969, in which Tommy didn't think too much of. He said of the film, a monster movie so cheap that the monster wore a scuba suit and had ping pong balls for eyes.
You once told me that you were, what was the word you,
Paleontologist.
Yeah, a study of things that were old.
Very old.
Perhaps you know of my creature. Look, why don't you exhibit it? You exhibit the rest of your creatures, why don't you, exhibit this too?
In 1971, Tommy appeared in the play Count Dracula about the tale of Vlad the Impaler. There were some films that he was happy with, like Pajama Party, The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini, and Village of the Giants, but there were many others he called pretty awful, like It's Alive in 1969, that he did for schlockmaster Larry Buchanan, which he said he did purely for the money. There was also Blood of Ghastly Horror in 1971, and the American Western film My Name is Legend, which Kirk later called a cowboy thing that was so bad it was never released. Finally, in 1974, he decided to leave the business. I went through a lot of things, and some films that were so stinko for some no-talent people that by 1974, everything had gone so bad and so rotten that I was sick of the business, and I guess the business was sick of me, and I quit. Tommy Kirk, who not only starred in the Hardy Boys' adventures for Walt Disney, but had a priceless experience of co-starring with Annette Funicello, was reputed to have indulged in booze and drugs, and once received what he calls the worst dressing down of my life from an inflamed Fred McMurray. Excommunicated from the Disney domain in 1965, he is currently active with the Metropolitan Community Church, the largest gay congregation in Los Angeles. Tommy started on a long road of rebuilding his life. In 1990, he reflected on things in a newspaper interview. Former Disney star goes unnoticed. How do people react when they meet you, he was asked. Sometimes they're shocked, says Tom Kirk, 48. They say, didn't you used to be someone? Once I walked down Wilshire Boulevard and there were two girls. I heard one say to the other, he looks like somebody from the 50s. Somebody from the 50s. 30 years ago, he was Tommy Kirk and he was a movie star. He starred in some of the most profitable Walt Disney movies ever made. I made a lot of money and I spent it all, Kirk said. No bitterness, no regrets, I did what I did. Tommy Kirk was a teenager earning $1,000 a week more than 30 years ago. Today that would be about making $5,000 a week. I was young and dumb, he said, and then I was broke. Kirk, who lives in Lexington, rode the bus here from Los Angeles. He's been a waiter, a chauffeur, and today cleans carpets for a living. It's my own one-man business, he said of his carpet cleaning. When he was 18, he made 5 movies back-to-back. He spent his youth working. His friends were other actors, such as Annette Funicello and Kevin Corcoran. Annette's a millionaire, but try to get her to lend you $5, Kirk said, laughing. And Kevin is a distinguished, successful producer, and I'm disgustingly poor. He was 22 when Disney fired him from a 7-year contract. Kirk will not say why, but he does say, "I wasn't the boy next door anymore. I could pretend to be for a few hours a day in front of the camera, but I couldn't live it. I'm human. I'm not St. Francis of Assisi." At Disney, you had to meet the family image or you were out. I knew the rules. I broke them. I'm not crying about it. After that, he said, came a downward spiral of B movies. It wasn't until 1992 that he finally opened up about what happened that got him fired from Disney. "I was caught having sex at a public pool in Burbank," he told Movie Line magazine in a 1992 interview that was circulated nationally. "An informant went to Walt and I was quickly fired," Kurt said. In a 1993 interview in Scarlet Street magazine, he further explained, "I used to swim in a pool down in Burbank and I met a teenager and one thing led to another and we had an affair. And then he talked and his parents went down to the studio and Disney was confronted with this. They didn't press charges, but that was the end of my contract. They didn't renew me, so all I can say is, if people want to make something dirty and nasty out of it, I don't care. I've never done anything that I didn't feel in my heart was love. It was a very pure and innocent thing to me all my life. It's my true nature, and if people want to make something ugly or scandalous over it, I have ceased for many years to give a shit, and you can quote me." Interviews by Tommy in the late 80s and 90s caused a renewed interest in the man by low-budget filmmakers, and he occasionally took an acting role in such films as Street of Death in 1998, Attack of the 60-Foot Centerfold in 1995, Billy Frankenstein in 1998, Club Dread in 2000, and his last role, The Education of a Vampire, in 2001.
They're delectable little items, aren't they? So round, so sweet, so juicy. They just about melt in your mouth.
Unfortunately, being gay caused him to be estranged from his family. Paul Peterson, a former Mouseketeer who was a friend of Kurt's and also the man who began the child actor support group A Minor Consideration, said, "Tommy does have a family, at least what we consider a family, with former kid stars." I must stress this, Tommy was not bitter about his treatment by the industry. He understood that he lived an alternative lifestyle. He tried not to hurt anyone, and he was extremely generous and kind with his fans. In that same 1993 interview in Scarlet Street magazine, Tommy said, "I've quit drugs. I don't use anything anymore. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't use drugs. I eat a very healthy diet and I feel pretty good. I enjoy my work and I'm a Christian. I found Christianity to be a huge and tremendous help in getting the poison out of my system, purging myself of all the resentments and bitterness." In 2006, Kirk was inducted as a Disney legend alongside his former co-stars Tim Considine and Kevin Corcoran. They joined other inductees such as Annette Funicello and Fred McMurray. He was also quoted on the LGBTQ Nation website in 2017 saying, "Finally I said to hell with the whole thing. To hell with show business. I'm going to make a new life for myself. I got off drugs, completely kicked all that stuff. I went out and started my own business. I've done it for years and I live well. I have a nice business, a nice pension, and friends," he said. As far as I can tell, Tommy lived a pretty happy life once he got out of Hollywood. Thomas Lee Kirk passed away in 2001. He was 79 years old. As I put this together, I couldn't help but wonder if Tommy's addictions had anything to do with him being a gay man at a time when it was unacceptable. It must be a huge burden on a person to know that what they do in their private lives could end their livelihood. But in Tommy's case, it was not only his livelihood, but his relationship with his immediate family. I've never understood why a person's sexual orientation is a cause for concern for anybody else. Who knows what his life and career would have been if he was living in a different time, a time when being gay was accepted by the general public. It would be nice, right? But luckily, Tommy got through all this and he seemed pretty content at the way his life turned out.